So do you want to start off talking about the nostalgic experience I had today?
Yeah.
When's the last time that you went to Chuck E. Cheese?
The answer is I don't know.
A long time.
But I was under the impression that it didn't exist anymore in Rhode Island. And I thought they were slowly... Was that DZ? Did Discovery Zone go out of business?
I think so.
Maybe that was it.
Yeah, that sounds right. Nope, there's still Chuck E. Cheese, the same one.
Discovery Zone. Yeah.
But you'll be happy to know.
Something where a kid can be a kid, yeah.
Lovely. Nailed it. You'll be glad to know that there is no ball pit at Chuck E. Cheese anymore.
Yeah, because they found diapers and needles. I don't even think that's an urban legend.
No, I'm sure it's real. I went to the trampoline park once and I saw a Band-Aid in the foam pit. So there's definitely... Well, yeah, I mean, it's going to happen.
You have to take off a diaper.
I mean, yeah.
And if it accidentally comes off, some child's running around naked. Because you have to lose 2 articles of clothing.
I mean, yeah.
Anyways,
also,
go ahead.
Yeah, anyway. So it was very weird being back at Chuck E. Cheese after I don't know, it's probably been close to 30 years since I've been at Chuck E. Cheese.
Do they have the animatronics?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
That was probably the thing that I remembered the most.
Not the original.
That was still the same. I mean, I don't know. It looked pretty similar to what I remember, but it's been quite a long time. But yeah, it was really fun. It was our daughter's first time at Chuck E. Cheese, and it was a birthday party, so she had unlimited play and was just mesmerized by all the games. Like, she's never really been into video games or been to an arcade or anything like that. So that was her first experience with that kind of thing, and she had a blast. And just now when I was putting her to bed, her eyes are getting heavy. She's drifting off, and she says to me, "Mommy, that pizza was the best pizza I've ever had."
There's a conspiracy theory about them reusing pizza.
What do you mean? How do you reuse it?
So slices that weren't consumed in parties, they take them and form a new pizza. Because I guess there are videos of people that have pizzas that are cut weird, quote unquote, but they're actually slices of pizza. I guess you get 8 per pie.
Oh, there were a lot more than 8 on the
I don't know.
Pizza we had
I don't
today.
know if it's just a conspiracy theory or
That's
not.
what it sounds like.
But apparently, I don't know. Maybe take it to Reddit, see if ex-employees are saying the same thing.
Well, apparently it was the best pizza our kid ever had. So,
for all you fellow Rhode Islanders out there, is Fantasyland still a thing? Remember Fantasyland?
Vaguely.
You don't remember
I don't think it's still a
Fantasyland?
thing.
Fantasyland was like...
Was that like go-karts and stuff?
It was... Oh, wait. I don't want...
That's not... Yeah, careful Googling that.
Well, I went to fantasyland.com. It was just the owl from the Tootsie Pop. It was in Seekonk. I don't think it exists anymore. It does not. Okay.
Yeah, is that what it was?
Closed for good.
Go-karts?
No, it was like a bootleg Chuck E. Cheese.
Oh, yeah, I don't remember that.
So, it had a a mini golf course.
Okay.
Anyways, welcome to While She's Napping. 3 minutes in.
Yeah. Are you going to introduce yourself?
Oh, yeah. I'm Adam.
And I'm Cindy.
Didn't you go first?
No.
I always went first?
Yes.
Alphabetical.
Yep.
And I'm older. I'm first player. It's my house.
Yeah. I blame the patriarchy.
No, I'm first player.
Yeah, I know. I'm always tails and you leave me behind. Yeah, we've been.
I don't think you can do that anymore in the new Sonics. I don't think you can leave them behind.
Oh, someone took pity on me.
Oh, I'm sure you weren't alone. I used to do that to my brother all the time.
Of course you did.
Left him behind.
Yeah.
He was always second player because it was my Sega.
Of course.
I think we did an episode on this.
Yes.
Anyways, last episode we did was, I think, a month or 2 months back.
It's been a while.
Favorite albums. We didn't want to start and end season 3 with 1 episode. So we are going to talk about self-care today. And in doing so, I found it difficult for me to sort of, maybe it's not necessary that I have to, but to sparse these out between self-care and passions and hobbies. It could be
Okay.
both.
Yeah, I think there's definitely overlap.
You know, because, for instance, the obvious is what I'm going to talk about, but later. But for an example, if you're a makeup artist, that is a form of self-care to look presentable and to feel confident, but it's also a passion and an art.
Sure.
You know, so that's an example of how it could be both at the same time.
Mm-hmm. But I think there are plenty of people who value taking the time to, you know, do their makeup or whatever, do their hair, you know, whatever they need to do to make themselves feel confident. And they're not necessarily to the level of being passionate about learning about new techniques or new products or whatever. It's just part of their routine.
They aren't makeup artists.
Yeah, that's what. Well, yeah. I think there's quite the spectrum there.
I don't know.
You wouldn't know.
I think like a makeup artist does makeup, and they post themselves on Facebook with like weird designs to show you what you can do with. I've seen people make themselves look like cartoons.
Oh, you're okay. Yeah, that's a legit makeup artist. But I'm saying there are plenty of people who may be very good at makeup who love doing it, but they just do it as part of their routine. Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever. Anyways, as usual, we took to the polls, and we got some responses, so we're going to include those. But I don't know how this came about. I think you and I, for the past year, have been taking extra steps to take care of our relationship and ourselves as individuals.
Yeah.
So later on down the line, when we talk about what it's like to have 2 kids, this will most certainly be included, an aspect of self-care, because I think a lot of parents, maybe none that I know, but to me, it's a recurring theme that you lose yourself in parenthood and you don't really give yourself time for yourself and your partner as individuals and as a couple. So that will, be touched on in another episode. But for this one, I just want to focus on what we do for self-care, just in case anybody needs any tips, just in case anybody needs any inspiration, or if you want to fully disagree with mostly me, that's fine.
Yeah, I think this really came on the heels of, both. Like you said, we're in the thick of it when it comes to being parents. We've got 2 young kids, combined with coming out of the pandemic, is kind of the 2 things in my mind that's really prompted us to put our self-care at the forefront the last several months, year, whatever. And the fact that we took quite a break, that we've been pretty relaxed with recording and keeping up with the podcast itself, in a sense has been a form of self-care. Like, I think doing the podcast is something that's been really good for our relationship and a great hobby for both of us. But there are also times, I think, where stepping back and taking a break actually is a form of self-care, when we just admit, like, things are too crazy, we're not in the right headspace, whatever it is, and we need to give ourselves permission to, take a break.
Yeah, I also think that, when it came to the pandemic, and obviously this show made its debut and was birthed basically out of a pandemic, or the pandemic, I should say. So we had a lot more time to do this, and we didn't have a second child. So pro tip, if you're thinking about doing a podcast and you have 2 young kids that are under 5, both, don't start a podcast.
Yeah.
And if you can, great. You're better than us, or at least me.
I think we've just had to adjust our expectations.
Sure.
As far as, putting out content on a regular basis. It's going to have to be a little bit more relaxed.
All right. So do you want me to kick it off? Because mine's fairly obvious.
Sure.
And we can just get it out of the way.
Okay.
All right. So all right.
The suspense.
Well, if you're a long-time listener to the show, I like working out and, exercising and mostly lifting. It took me a while for me to admit to myself, and I still struggle with it to this day, that it is a passion of mine. I have a very difficult time admitting that lifting is a passion, because it seems weird that lifting is a passion. It seems more like that's just exercise in general, in my opinion. It's just something you should do. So it's kind of like breathing is a passion of mine.
No, that's... I mean, brushing your teeth is something you should do, but not everybody becomes a dental hygienist. Like,
sure.
I mean, yes, exercising regularly is something that you should do for your general health and well-being. But there are people who become bodybuilders or, are athletes who take their physical fitness to the next level. Like, that's not a basic expectation of just
but
like
I'm
normal.
neither of those.
I understand, but I would argue that you are an athlete, even though you don't compete and you don't.
Then I can't be an athlete.
That's not true.
Ooh, this is philosophical. Can you be, for instance, a musician without being one professionally?
Yes, of course.
Can you be a musician without, like, writing your own stuff?
So if you just play an instrument or you sing, but you don't write, then yes, you're a musician, but you're not a songwriter or a composer, but you can still be a musician.
You're a musician if you don't write your own stuff. That's
I would say so.
So you're a writer if you write someone else's stuff?
Yes.
Okay. That's interesting. I'm not disagreeing with you. This is just...
Never thought of it like that before?
No. I would assume being a musician is something you have to do if you're writing your own stuff, like professional or otherwise, amateur. You're writing your own. I don't consider people that play cover songs musicians.
I do, because they play a musical instrument.
No, they're just...
Then what are they?
Cover bands.
But the individuals, if they're not a musician, what are they?
People that play instruments of other people's stuff.
Okay.
Right off the back of whatever.
Anyways. Yeah, this could be a future episode.
Sure. I have a difficult time admitting to myself. I'm trying to force it more and more that I have a passion of working out, and I guess I do because I do it almost every fucking day. It's not a humble brag. It's more of a why. But yeah, I think for me, I've established a routine. I think that started when we were living in Providence, and when I was working at that restaurant downtown in Providence. That's when I started working out super early in the morning, quote unquote, because to me at that time 5:30 in the morning was super early.
It is for most people.
Until it graduated to the 4 a.m. level. And that's when I work out Monday through Saturday on average. And to me, I've said this to you, I just have never felt so alive than I do when I lift. And I'm not jacked. I'm not big. I'm not cut. I'm fairly average in terms of my physique, but I just love doing it. It's going to sound so bro. It's going to sound so gym rat, but the rush of adrenaline, the, what are those things? Endorphins that you get during a session, and the pump that you get.
What was that?
The pump. The pump that you get after lifting the weights.
Is that Siggy? Who's that?
No, I don't know.
Nobody? Okay.
It's my Austrian / German / Russian / all those places where you would imagine a jack guy. It to me, it's so, I don't know. It just makes me feel so alive. It makes me feel so good. And the fact that I get to do that first thing in the morning, and the hardest part about my day is done first thing in the morning, makes me feel so good about myself, and then it just goes away.
Oh my God.
But it just, I don't know, to me, that is, in my opinion, not to say that if you don't do this, you are not accomplishing this. For me, for Adam, it is the ultimate form of self-care for me to start the day. Yeah.
I mean, you've cracked the code when it comes to exercise, because I think, and it's something that I've come to the realization recently is the best form of exercise. We were just talking about this the other day, is whatever you're going to do consistently and that you're going to enjoy. Like if you are forcing yourself to do something that doesn't feel right or you're not really into, like if you're thinking I have to do this particular routine or this particular exercise, or I have to lift weights, or I have to run on the treadmill, or you have this like preconceived notion of something you have to do to get a certain result, I think you're way less likely to stick with it than if you're just like, for me, I just enjoy going for walks when it's nice out like this and I look forward to it and I thoroughly enjoy it. I don't dread it. And that allows me to do it consistently. Same thing with dance. So it's like, find it. And for you, it's lifting. And that's what keeps you consistent, is because you do genuinely enjoy doing it. It's not, as I'm sure waking up at 3:30 or whatever is not enjoyable.
Never.
Right. But you know that you're motivated because you're going to do something that you truly enjoy. You genuinely enjoy doing.
Yeah, my routine is fairly, actually, I mean, if anybody wanted to assassinate me, you definitely could, because I'm like a fucking clock. Yep. Everything is the same in terms of my morning. But alarm goes off at 3:20 just for me to get out of bed to go to the couch to snooze for 10 minutes.
So weird.
That is because there's something good. Maybe this is a form of self-care. There is something welcoming and compelling about the snooze button. Like, what kind of psychopath just wakes up on the first alarm and stays up?
Me?
No, you don't.
My alarm is usually a child crying.
No, I'm saying a genuine alarm on your phone.
It depends.
Everybody I know sets their alarm with the snooze in mind, with at least one snooze in mind.
Yeah, I guess I just can't relate because I don't usually get woken up by a clock, an alarm on a clock. Yeah. I get woken up by a child. So the child doesn't have a snooze button, unfortunately.
The aspect of just going back to the couch and being like, I get to sleep in for 10 minutes. It's so rewarding. It's so comforting because I never feel like working out until I hit the pre-workout and I'm like, all right, let's fucking do this. So ultimate thing of self-care for me is something that I don't even really want to do in the morning. And then I just fucking power through it.
Yeah. Once you start, you are glad you're doing it.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. I guess piggybacking off of that, watching my food intake, self-care, just like sort of eating in moderation, and watching my alcohol intake. Mostly, if not entirely, just drinking on the weekends. And it's very infrequent as it is. So, yeah, I think that's all encompassing for me.
Okay, so what about well, I know obviously your fitness routine contributes to your mental health, but your diet and sort of, alcohol in moderation and all that is sort of related to your physical, like literally taking care of your physical body. But what about for your mental health?
Kind of put me on the spot here.
Well, yeah.
I mean,
when I think of self-care, I'm obviously like, yes, taking care of your physical body and taking care of yourself. But I think a lot of it is also just talking about what you do to make yourself feel good, feel fulfilled, feel, like sane. Like for me, a lot of my self-care is not necessarily, sometimes it's things that may be counterproductive in general. Like I'm thinking of things like watching reality TV, like zoning out like that and taking a mental break, even though that doesn't really provide anything of substance to my life. It's not challenging me. It's not teaching me anything. It's not contributing to my physical health. But for me, it is, helps me keep my sanity and helps me turn my brain off for a while. And that's an important form of self-care, in my opinion.
I don't really have anything like that. I used to watch sports all the time, and now I just don't, unless it's the Bills. Mostly because I don't have time to watch a Jays game every day or a Raptors game almost every day. I just don't have the time to do it now. Maybe when the kids get older, I'll be able to recapture that. But I guess just zoning out and watch. Right now we're watching How I Met Your Mother. We're rewatching that, which is a nostalgic trip in and of itself. Sort of just zoning out at the end of the day and hanging out with you and not having to like discuss anything. And so we can just watch TV and sort of zone out. Unless there's something that needs to be discussed, then of course. But
well, yeah.
Also naps. Naps are really good. I love naps. I can't really take them as often as I used to be able to, because I used to be able to take them on my lunch break when I worked from home. Now I don't work from home anymore, so I can't take a nap at the office. So I don't really have like an activity. I mean, I don't really go for walks anymore because I'm not home.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I just noticed that when you were talking about the things you do for self-care are different from a lot of the things that people said on the polls and a lot of the things that first came to mind. I mean, I think exercise is a pretty common one that people mention, but I
mean, that and my beard.
Yeah.
That's the only that's physical
legit.
thing is my beard.
Yeah.
But that's it, really. The reason why I was so reluctant to call this a passion is because it's taken me a while to come to terms with the fact that my mere existence and functionality day to day revolves around working out. And it's not like it's an addiction. It's more like this is something that I do to get my day going. And unless it's a scheduled rest day, if it gets interrupted, my whole day is thrown off.
Yeah. But I guess that's still, to me, that does sound like something that you're passionate about. Like that goes beyond the, I want to say normal, but you know what I mean? Like the more common
not brushing your teeth
routine of people who exercise for their health. I mean,
yes.
3 times a week, 30 minutes each time is like the baseline. I think that's recommended. But yeah, I think to do what you do requires a passion. I don't think you could do it without that, honestly.
Yeah, sure. It's not a PSA. It's just me.
So I guess for me, I mean, I kind of alluded to, my forms of exercise, recognizing that I can exercise by doing things that I enjoy versus doing things that I think I need to do to get a specific aesthetic result has been a big shift in my mindset in terms of my self-care. And it is more focused on my mental health than my physical health. And my physical health is like a side effect of doing the exercise that I enjoy.
Oh, you're talking just exercise.
Yeah, like when I go for walks or when I take my dance classes and I do those types of things that make me happy and I enjoy them and they're fun. And it's more of like for my walks, I just enjoy being able to listen to an entire podcast episode in one sitting, if you will. But versus in the midst of chores or cooking or whatever, where I listen to 10 or 20 minutes at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been a big shift for me in terms of my self-care. And then another one that I recently made, I know other people who are around my age, I think when I hit 30, I realized I actually have to do skincare is like a thing.
How is that not aesthetic though? Not only aesthetic. Aesthetic has to be involved in that.
It is for sure. But I think it's also there are certain things that happen to your skin as you get older that are more than just aesthetic, like irritation. I've started breaking out again, which I think is like a hormonal thing after going through pregnancy and breastfeeding and all of that stuff, and maybe combined with aging. I don't really know, but my skin changed a lot after having kids.
Yeah.
And so taking my skincare seriously, even and definitely from the perspective of making sure you put on sunscreen every day is really important.
I guess that's like is this a word?
Dermatology? Dermatological?
Yeah.
Yes. So I finally went to, I've been going to a dermatologist on a regular basis for a long time for checkups, but I actually asked her this time, so I realized, I'm approaching my mid-30s. I should probably actually take my skincare kind of more seriously. And she was like, yeah, I'm really glad you asked. And she told me the things that are actually important versus the stuff that influencers try to make you buy that is,
you can couple
sounds
that with
good,
fitness
but
too.
Yeah, totally. And so she narrowed it down to 3-4 products that I use, and I've been using them regularly since the beginning of this year. And I've noticed a huge difference. And it is, in addition to the aesthetic and health benefits, it helps me just having a routine.
Yeah. I can see how it could be secondarily aesthetic now that you're talking about it.
Yeah. It makes me feel like I am taking, even if it's just 10 minutes to wash my face, put on 2 products, and then feel like I am, my day is, I've washed my day away.
Yeah.
I'm ready for bed. I feel clean. I feel, hydrated, whatever. My skin's not itchy. It's not dry. And that helps me kind of settle in for the night. So that's been a shift for me in thinking about skincare as a serious self-care thing. Another big one that I know, I'm surprised no one mentioned, but I'm sure there are more people who do this, is go to therapy. That's a big, obvious top of the list for a lot of people in terms of self-care. And I've been going to therapy on and off for probably close to 15 years now.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, on and off.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, not regularly. And I think it's something that, I started going because of a significant, thing that happened in my life. And then I've still found it helpful, even when, I'm not sort of processing like a big trauma or any really serious issues. But it still just helps me kind of bounce things off someone else and process and go and, work through problems, and make me feel like I'm not totally crazy, or helps me get perspective when I am completely overthinking something, which I do a lot. And I know you can relate to being an overthinker.
I mean, yeah. I don't think it's for everyone.
No, but I think it's more likely to be helpful than not for most people.
You have to be receptive to it.
Yes. You have to want to do it.
Yeah.
So some of the other ones that I was going to mention came up during the polls.
Well, let's save those.
So you want to save them for the second half?
Yeah, because I have more.
Oh, okay.
I don't know, especially when it comes to parents. It's more of a commentary on self-care, because I sort of alluded to it in the beginning, and then we can hit the break when we can go to the polls. But I think when it comes to couples that don't have kids, or even individuals that don't have kids, it's very easy to focus on yourself because you're the only one really involved, unless, of course, you're caring for an elder or a sibling or something, friend, whatever, or your job's super demanding, and maybe you're a brain surgeon and you work 12-hour shifts or something like that.
I work longer than that.
Okay,
but yeah,
fine.
I know what I mean. Yeah.
But if you have kids, it's really hard to carve out the time initially to give yourself any sort of care. And once you do that over and over again, especially in the beginning stages of having a baby and stuff, that becomes routine, and the aspect of caring for yourself almost seems like you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, it's the guilt.
Right.
Yeah.
Like you shouldn't be taking care of yourself because there's this being that is fully and utterly dependent on you. And how dare you take time to care about yourself, who's a fully functioning adult that can, live through this, but a child needs you, at least as a baby, 24/7.
They can't take care of themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, we got into that a little bit in the polls too.
It's important. That's all I'm saying. It's important. From what I have discovered, it's important to allow yourself to regain some of that selfishness, because I think a good amount of selfishness is good and healthy. And when you hear the term selfish, it sort of has this negative connotation to it. I don't think that's correct. I think you are allowed to be selfish, and it could be a positive thing for everyone involved.
Yeah. Yeah. If especially when the time you're taking for yourself is intentional and you're doing the things that are going to be effective in terms of helping you, self-regulate, fill your cup, for, to use a cliche, but make yourself feel refreshed, recharged, whatever, to be able to be a better parent or be more present at your job if it's really demanding or whatever it is. Like,
right.
Yeah, that's why I think it's good that we've had this, had more focus on our self-care the last couple, few months, year, whatever it's been, so that I'm starting to feel less guilty, because I know that the things I'm doing are the things that I need to be doing, and I'm not just taking time for myself just for the sake of taking time for myself. I'm being more intentional about it.
Yeah, and whether it's just like you said, listening to a podcast, taking a nap, taking a long nap, those are the best. If I could nap for like 3 hours, I would. And I guess that's no longer a nap at that point. But
Yeah.
even trying to find time where you can have alone time, I think it's a form of self-care, even if it's while doing shit that you have to do. For instance, I like to zone out to a podcast or a YouTube video or whatever while doing
cleaning?
the dishes.
Yeah.
So it's sort of, I'm sneaking in. I'm holding the chores hostage with my alone time, and I'm trying to like balance out both.
Yeah, I don't think it's a secret that at the end of the day, when we're both exhausted and someone has to have kid duty and someone has cleanup duty,
we're happy that we have cleanup
it's
duty.
like we need to do rocks, paper, scissors for who gets to do cleanup.
Well, yes.
Like
yes.
we obviously both love spending time with our kids, and that's cool. But also, it seems like kind of the easier job is to be able to throw your headphones on and focus on doing these like routine tasks that don't take a lot of energy or thinking, versus wrangling two little kids through bath time and bedtime and all that
menial stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Let's pause it here and let's get into the polls and let's see what other people had to say about their forms of self-care and see if we can relate to them.
Okay.
Hang tight.
All right, so I think I'll start with the just the yes/no polls that we did, and then we can get into some of the more open-ended questions.
Yeah, we'll talk about this.
Like the content of what people said that they do or suggest for self-care. So the first question, these are kind of tied together, but it's hard to tell if the people who answered them are all parents. I don't think I was super clear in how I asked it, but you'll see what I mean. So I asked if for parents who were answering the questions, has your self-care changed since having kids? And
then yes, it's for parents.
It's
all
the
right.
next question that was unclear.
Gotcha.
Because then I also asked, do you ever feel guilty for practicing self-care? But I didn't aim that question specifically at parents. That was for
Gotcha.
anyone. Oops, sorry. That was my metal straw in my drink.
Yeah. Save the earth.
I know. So anyway, I think there's probably a lot of overlap in the people who answered yes, that they sometimes feel guilty for practicing self-care, with the people who are parents who answered the other question.
Sure.
So for the parents who answered, has their self-care changed since having kids? It was 71% said yes, and 29% said duh. And
so you
0% said no.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah,
So you did have a no.
Yeah. So for all of the people who answered who are parents, they've all said that their self-care has changed since having kids. In
Does
what
that-
way?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, so we can get into that with some of the content answers. And then it was so I think this is where you can kind of delineate. 77% said that they have felt guilty for practicing self-care. 23% that they said that they have not. And I believe a good chunk of the 23% who said no are not parents.
That makes sense.
So it does track and it makes sense. Yeah, I think that, like you said before, it's possible just because they're not parents doesn't mean that they don't have some responsibilities or they're caretaker in some other way that would make them feel guilty for taking time for themselves. But I think the most obvious and common pattern is when you become a parent, when that guilt really starts to set in.
The ironic part about, or maybe coincidental, I didn't read any of these. I didn't know any of these results. And I sort of alluded to it before the break about feeling guilty.
Yeah.
About self-care.
Yep.
So I can imagine that a lot of these people, I'm not trying to, single anyone out or single a group of people out, but I imagine the people that struggle the most with self-care, especially after having kids, are moms.
Mm-hmm.
And because most of the time, speaking from experience, routines don't necessarily change for the dad in the long haul. Obviously, in the beginning, helping, with the child's waking up in the middle of the night and stuff like that.
But I would actually argue the opposite, that the thing that was so hard for me in the newborn phase was the fact that your routine largely stayed the same.
That's
after
what I said. Yeah.
What you said in the long term.
No. My routine, Dad's routine, mostly stay the same in the long term. Like in the short term, when the child is just born, my routine changed.
Not as much as mine.
No, but it changed. I'm saying it changed.
Right, but you were still getting up and going to work. Like you only had a week or two off.
Yes.
And so your routine largely was still the same.
Yes. I'm saying for me personally, like it still felt like a shift for me.
Of course it's going to feel like a shift, but I'm saying you still have a lot of your routine.
Yes.
There is no routine for most moms who are.
And I wonder how many of these moms that answered, if they are moms, I assume, like we said, a lot of them are out of that phase.
Right.
And still don't have an established routine.
Yeah.
I feel for you. Because especially as your kids get older, the ability to establish a routine should become more and more prevalent, I think.
Yeah. I mean, we have routines, even with young kids, but it's still, there's always transitions. There's always things you can't predict. There's always new phases. There's teething. There's potty training. There's whatever. There's things that throw your routine off all the time. I remember that was one of the pieces of advice I got before we had our first daughter was my best friend said to me, just remember, as soon as you feel like you've got a routine and you have everything under control and you feel comfortable, that's when something is going to happen. Like that means the other shoe's about to drop. She wasn't trying to scare me. She was just saying, like, just being realistic, like it's a constant, things are constantly morphing and there's always another phase that's imminent. So don't get too comfortable. Anytime you feel like you're in a groove, like something is probably going to change.
And I'm sure it exacerbates after you have a second one, because once you have that first kid and you go through, assuming, our situation is unique for us. A lot of people just get it out of the way, the 2 under 2 kind of thing. Bless your fucking hearts.
Yeah.
But for us going through that hardships of the two, we have episodes about this. When our child was 2, our oldest, that was a difficult time. And what you're saying is sort of making me recall this and dreading the fact that our youngest is turning 2 in about 5 months.
Yep.
Actually, it's 5 months of the day.
It's coming. Yep. And I have a feeling she's going to be worse.
Oh, she's a bully.
Yeah.
She's quite the bully. So, yeah, I feel for you guys. I just think it's important, especially for parents. It's ubiquitous throughout, whether you're a parent or not. It's important to take care of yourselves. And that's why I think, what was it, 23% or whatever? 23%
so they have not felt guilty.
Yeah, that's probably, if you're a parent and you did not feel guilty about having a self-care practice or routine, good for you. And I mean that without an ounce of sarcasm. Good for you, because that takes a tremendous amount of strength.
Yeah, and I think it might come with time, too. These might be parents who have slightly older children, or maybe they just had a really solid self-care routine before having children, and they just stuck with it. It could be a variety of situations.
Or they have, massive amounts of money, and they have a really good nanny.
Or I was going to say support system in general. That's also important.
Or an au pair.
Yeah, that's so fancy.
I feel like you have to be hot to be an au pair.
Wow.
Oh
my God.
What is the difference between an au pair and an au pair? Just sounds kind of like, I don't know, sensual.
Oh my God. You're talking about objectifying people.
No,
Jesus.
I'm just saying, you're saying, oh, my housekeeper, oh, the maid, the au pair.
I think an au pair generally is like a live-in
the au pair
nanny. I think a nanny doesn't necessarily live with the family, but I think an au pair does.
There's probably porns.
Oh, okay.
About au pairs.
Let's move on. Jesus Christ.
The au pair.
God.
Can we get an au pair?
I'm sure there's a Lifetime movie called that. I would guarantee it.
Can we get an au pair?
Oh my God, no. Okay. one point I think this is important to make that someone sent us in regards to the feeling guilty thing. Someone mentioned that they have, to take care of their physical well-being. This is also something I started doing. Chiropractic work and massage therapy. This person also said that they do this and they don't feel guilty at all, despite the fact that it is not cheap, because it's something that they know that they truly need, for their quality of life and to not be in physical pain. So I can relate to that. And that is something.
But isn't that more prescriptive?
It can be, but it doesn't change the fact that it's expensive and it takes time.
Yeah, no doubt.
You have to take time out of work. You have to use sick leave, whatever you have available to you.
Yeah. You're right.
To go to those appointments, and it costs money. Even when you go to I go to a chiropractor's office, it's like a medical office where the massage therapist is, and I still have the massage therapy isn't covered by insurance at all. The chiropractic care is, but I still have a copay.
Right.
And if you go regularly, once a month or whatever, it really does add up.
Yeah.
But I think that's a legitimate point. Like if you're living in physical pain every day, that if you have the ability to do that, you shouldn't feel guilty for it. So
how many people said jerking off?
Just one. And I was literally debating whether or not this was time to bring that up. So, apparently, I'm not sure if it was said seriously or jokingly.
Happy birthday, Chris.
Yeah. I think that's a serious answer. I think that's a legitimate serious answer.
Are we going to talk about this?
Oh, I mean, we don't have to go into detail, but I just think that, your sexual health is part of your well-being.
Are we going to talk about Are we going to talk about our frequencies?
No, we do not need to go into detail. I just think it's worth mentioning because that is something else I don't feel that I don't think people should feel guilty about. And I'm glad someone said it.
Why would you feel guilty about it?
It's a very taboo topic.
What?
Are you serious?
Jerking off or sex?
I mean, any of them, specifically jerking off.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, but I'm saying I think talking about it as a form of self-care.
What are you going to do if he says, guys, I was just kidding?
But I mean, you don't have to hide it, Chris. It's okay.
Guys are a bunch of jerks. Why are you calling him out? Now
you already did.
No, okay. Now people are going to hit
one
them
knows.
up and
hey,
be like,
we have lots of friends named Chris.
Okay. Okay. Well, I did wish him a happy birthday.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
I mean,
we can cut this out if you want.
No, I don't want to. I don't want to at all.
All right. Anyway, I think that's a legitimate answer, whether or not he was kidding. Okay. So something else. Let's just shift topics real quick.
Shift
topics. So we're again talking about like from the parent perspective and being intentional about doing things that you know is going to be the most effective. I have only recently gotten to the point where I feel less guilt for just going out. Like, I think...
Oh, I didn't mention that either. Shit.
Yeah. So, well, we're mentioning it now. So
yeah.
I think some of the other things people mentioned, and I want to talk about a little bit more, but I touched on it with like the skincare thing. You briefly mentioned your beard, things that have to do with like your basic hygiene.
my physical self.
Yeah. But like taking care of your physical self. And someone mentioned like a daily shower. This is a parent of 2 young children. I know that for a fact. And that to me that's a very legitimate answer. I know I know exactly what they mean, but at the same time, it makes me sad that parents or moms in particular feel like that is their self-care, is just doing something like, oh, that's me time. That's something that everyone deserves, like as a baseline. Like that shouldn't count to me as like your self-care versus, being able to go out and do something that you enjoy. Go to a dance class, go out to get drinks with your friends, or go out to dinner. But you
deserve to do that too.
You deserve to do it all. But I'm saying like a daily shower and like time to brush your teeth and like take care of your body, like your physical health and your hygiene should not be like a privilege or a luxury or like something that I don't know. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like
all more reason to get an au pair.
Sure. Anyway.
An au pair named Vanessa.
That is very specific. Okay.
It's from Raymond.
It is?
Yeah.
They have
Vanessa.
an au pair?
No.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Can we not call it? Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I think socializing, I know for me, like a lot of my friendships, and again, a lot of this is combined with the perfect storm of the pandemic being the same time that we became parents pretty much. A lot of my friendships have grown sort of distant, not like from any malicious reason or any negativity, just the product of
She hates you motherfuckers.
the pandemic and being sucked into motherhood and all of that. So I think intentionally making time for that socialization is a form of self-care for me now. And it's something that it takes logistical planning. It's not easy, but I think it's really important.
I
and
agree.
it makes me feel like I can get out of mom mode for a couple hours.
Yeah, I agree. I think we've, touching back in the beginning of this episode when we talked about how for the past year we've been putting a stronger emphasis on our care for each other and care for us as individuals, and hanging out with my friends at least once a month, one night a month, has been a top priority. And for the most part, I've stuck with it. Now, of course, like once the holidays hit and stuff, it's hard, especially when you have something to do every single weekend leading up to those holidays, whatever. But specifically starting, I think last summer, I contacted like my best friend and I said, we need to do something like once a month, whatever it is. And he was receptive to it. And let's do it. And it's just having that sort of, I know it's, you can laugh all you want, but like that broship, that connection, that
bromance.
Where I can just sort of, there's a fine line for me to act like an adult and still sort of reach back and be like, but you can let loose a little bit.
Of course you can.
So I don't like to get fucked up, but I like to like relax and let loose with my friends. Not to the point of belligerence, but to the point where I'm like, I don't have to worry about anything right now.
Yeah.
Like I don't have to worry about my kids right now because, we made the deal that when you go out, I'll hang, unless our moms are watching, but.
Well, that gets back to the support system. You have a partner and or other people in your life who you trust.
Yeah.
To take care of your kids and you can relax.
Yeah. I don't have to worry about my job or whatever. I get to hang out with my friends and not stress about anything. And I think that's valuable. So I know for you have been frequently going to this one particular spot every week with your friends for trivia, and I think that's great. My friends in particular, specifically one friend, is sort of pulling me out of things, saying, hey, we're going to this. And it's sort of like, because I think he would know that I would give him a million reasons why I won't do that.
Yep, exactly.
And so when he puts me in a position where it's, hey, we're going to go do this, I'll take care of XYZ, don't worry about it.
Right. Or it's, hey, do you want to go to this thing? Okay, cool, because I already bought the tickets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just, I'm grateful for it after the fact. Yeah. Because he's right. If we have a conversation about it, I'll give him a million reasons why.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think it's also important, this is something that's always been true for me, is to have something to look forward to. And so if you're having a shitty week or you're really stressed out or whatever, like the days just start to run together and it's this monotonous thing. But if you have something in particular that you enjoy doing, or you have people that you really enjoy spending time with that make you feel refreshed, having that to look forward to for me, like on a weekly basis, has been huge. Like that makes a big difference to me. And even though part of me is like, how am I going to go out and not get home until midnight or whatever, and then do the whole mom thing the next day? Especially now we have Saturday mornings are insane. Now our oldest daughter has t-ball games at 8:30, followed by dance class, and then we often have a birthday party or something else going on Saturday afternoons.
Heading into that,
we're getting into that crazy season, but it doesn't even matter. Like, yeah, I'm tired, but I feel more refreshed and engaged with my kids and everything after I've had that time for myself. Mm-hmm. So it's it's counterintuitive in some ways, but I've noticed that I shouldn't be afraid to go out just because I might lose a couple hours of sleep. Like, it's worth it in the end. We're used to being sleep deprived at this point. What's the big deal?
I don't know what you're talking about. And that's not even me being sarcastic. I am not sleep deprived.
I don't know how. I honestly don't.
Because it's routine.
I guess. Yeah, for me, it was more unpredictable, especially when the kids were little. It was years of not knowing if I was going to get 2 hours or 8 hours. It was like
I'm
all
good
over
with
the
like
place.
the 5.5 to 6.
Yeah.
And I crush it. That's weird. I look forward to something every day. Seeing your face.
Wow. Trying to make up for the pair comments, I see.
I'm not making up. I'm trying to expand our spice.
Okay.
To
Vanessa?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So one answer that I thought was really interesting, a really interesting distinction, is they said that exercise is their most important form of self-care.
Hell yeah.
But they have a different form of, so they distinguish between important and valued. So they think exercise is their most important, but doing things like getting their hair done or their nails done, like those aesthetic things, are their most valued.
Yeah. Because guess what? You can't fucking do those other things that are most valued unless you do the most important thing. Obviously, you can. I'm being general. I'm just saying, if you don't take care of your physical stuff, eventually you're not going to be able to do physical stuff.
Okay, but we're talking about like relatively young, healthy people.
No. I'm agreeing with this comment. It is the most important.
Yes.
It is the most important because it enables you to do the valuable stuff.
Sure. Yes. I guess what I'm saying is that it sounds like if this person had to choose, they might choose the valuable. Like, to them, it's more valuable. Maybe it just means that they get more out of it in terms of like feeling like they're taking care of themselves.
Yeah.
Because that to me does, like, we were talking before about general hygiene, showering, whatever, is like, the basics. Getting your hair done, getting your nails done. I've been doing that too for a couple of years now. I started getting my nails done on a regular basis. And I do think that's a form of self-care for me. And it is totally like superficial. And
why is it superficial? Why can't it just be something that, I don't think it's superficial at all.
I think it's superficial for me to like feel like I have to have my nails done all the time.
I don't think that's superficial.
But I think that comes out of, and this is a whole nother conversation, comes out of years of me feeling like I'm in a field that's, a male dominated field where people are very casual, in the natural resources field. It's like being very feminine, wearing a lot of makeup, dressing like, it's like you got to look like you just rolled out of the field, like you just were hiking or hunting to kind of be like in the, I don't know, like one of the guys has sort of been the environment that I was in for a long time. And so I feel like I kind of pushed that part of myself down for a long time. Like I was always kind of a tomboy until the last few years. I'm just like, I don't care.
We'll have to get Vanessa's take on this.
Yeah. So anyway, I feel like what I'm saying is I feel like in my field, there's a little bit of a stigma towards things that are very feminine. And you don't really get taken seriously if you look very feminine. And so for me, it's like getting that done. Yes, it's an aesthetic thing. It's very superficial, but it makes me feel like myself. And I feel like I can finally do that unapologetically. Like I finally have the confidence to do that despite what people think about me in my professional world.
I see why that's valued. I understand. And I just come from a different spot that there's very, very few things that I'd rather do than work out.
I know. You're a unicorn.
I'm not a unicorn.
Yeah, you kind of are. Okay. So anyway, to the person who said that, I thought that was a really important distinction. I'm glad they brought that up. So there was only two more things I want to mention. Someone who is a preschool teacher said they value their quiet time as a form of self-care, and I can completely relate.
Like during class?
No, I think like in general, like when they get home from work after being around however many preschoolers all day screaming, I can imagine they literally just want to sit in silence for hours. And I think that's a product of just generally being overstimulated.
Sure.
I think oftentimes moms describe that, especially when they have young babies who are very clingy, or when they're breastfeeding or whatever, or they have a baby that wants to be held or worn all the time. They feel touched out. It's just like this sense of overstimulation. Yeah. And I think with the sound, it can happen the same way. So I don't know how people do that who are preschoolers. Like it is, I've got a taste of it when we were home during when I was home with a toddler during COVID. I can't imagine doing that times however many kids are in the class all day, every day. Absolutely crazy. I can completely appreciate quiet time being a form of self-care. Someone said something similar, but they were specific to just sitting quietly or walking outside, being in nature with their phone off. So no distraction, not listening to a podcast or music or anything, just like, again, this quiet time, but specifically outside.
You call me a unicorn.
What? You think that's a unique thing?
In 2023? Yeah. Not having your phone in your pocket?
No. I didn't say not having it on them, not having, like, they put it in airplane mode.
Yeah,
so like they can't be distracted.
I think that is
I think that's like
unique.
a meditative thing.
If you take all the phones in America and see how often they're off or on airplane mode, I'd say the vast majority of them are not.
I guess. Yeah. Well, that's a very intentional. I think there are a lot of people who have the intention of maybe going outside for a walk or sitting outside in nature quietly and just like.
I know. I'm saying that's rare.
But they don't actually turn their phone off or, I know what you're saying.
They'll listen to a podcast or something.
Sure. Yeah. Well, this person is also, they're a birder. They're a very like
all great
outdoorsy
things.
Person who enjoys, observing nature and
also
all that.
Rare.
Well, not in my world.
Right. And how much youth is in your world?
A good amount.
I'm saying younger than you.
I mean,
how many Gen Zers are going into this?
There's not you're right. It's heavier on the older generation side. Yeah. We're old souls. The ones of us who are in our 30s who are doing this and younger. Anyway, that's shifting. There's a lot of younger generation getting involved in like climate advocacy and stuff like that. And the social justice overlap with environmental issues. So one thing in particular that this person pointed out was that in addition to having the phone just, on airplane mode, so there would be no distractions in general, they were specific about saying it's a boundary for work of like, they do this outside of their work time. I know you can relate. You joke with your boss all the time. You're like, hey, it's after 5 o'clock. We're not friends. We can't talk right now.
4:24. Our friendship's over.
Yeah, our friendship's over.
Friendship time is over.
I know that I have struggled with this ever since I got an iPhone for work.
You mean a work phone?
Yeah, I mean a smart. I used to have a flip phone until
I understand.
More recently than was probably acceptable. But now that I have a phone where I can access my email and my Teams chats and everything at any time, and it does make it more difficult to turn off work when I'm done. Having those boundaries around your job, if possible, I think is an extremely important form of self-care. And that made me think of just boundaries in general. Like, I mean, people have boundaries with, we don't have this problem, but there are people who have boundary issues with like in-laws or other family members of, it just made me think of just setting boundaries with people, whatever relationships they are, can be a really critical form of self-care. Why are you looking at me like that?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Nothing.
I don't have anyone in particular in mind when I'm saying that. I know of people who have had a lot of issues with that.
We do not have in-law issues. That's not what I'm saying.
Correct.
That's I'm not even being sarcastic.
I know.
That's all.
I think if anything, our in-law boundaries are like the opposite, where we feel like we ask them too many things, where I'm like,
yes.
Like, we don't want them to come over, or if like, say they're babysitting and I need to start work, like I have a meeting that starts right at 9 o'clock or something, and I'll be like, well, they're coming at 8:30. That should be fine. But then like, I know I'm going to be like rushing and scrambling. So I'm like, I don't want to ask them to come at 8 o'clock, but because we're worried it's a long day. But really, if I'm prioritizing myself and my sanity and knowing that I'll be able to have a productive morning, I should ask. And then it's on them to say no if it's too much, versus like us sort of protecting them preemptively and being afraid to ask for what we need for our self-care because we're afraid it's going to impact someone else. So I feel like that's the dynamic that or at least I have struggled with when it comes to boundaries. It's like a reverse boundary issue, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. I don't know. I think, putting a bow on this, I think it's not really, I mean, your self-care routine is so embedded in your life that you don't really think about it until you have to. And for me, it outside of the obvious, it was really hard for me to, find something that doesn't have any relation to fitness. For me, that's self-care. Other than, as we mentioned, hanging out with my friends, making it a point. And that's not just self-care, that's blossoming a relationship and making sure that's maintained. Because as parents, you can lose that really quick.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to, which it's going to sound mean, but with some friends, I don't want to lose that.
Especially friends who don't have kids, because
yes.
with our friends who have kids, it's a little bit easier because you get the kids together to play.
Right. There are friends of mine that some of it has faded away, and it's to no one's fault that I'm accepting of. And it's not like I don't want anything to do with you. That's not it at all. It's more that our lives are so busy right now because most of the time both of us have kids that it's really hard.
And you just grow apart.
And, they have their daycare parent friends or whatever and their group of friends,
We did a whole episode on friendships after having kids.
It's very important for me to maintain those relationships with the people that I'm close to. And that's my way of doing it. But outside of fitness, it's really hard for me to find stuff other than hanging out with my friends and my beard. It's really hard for me to find anything because, again, don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. People say it's not a bad thing. It just dominates my life. Personal life.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to pick something to be, I know you said it's not really an addiction or what, but I mean, of all things to like need to do every day, it's not a bad one.
It could be Coke.
Sure.
Could be Vanessa the Au Pair.
Wow.
By the way, you're Vanessa the Au Pair tonight.
Wow. I'm in flannel pajamas, right? Like
she would be.
That should be a signal.
That's how it starts. Oh, I'm just in my flannel.
Wow. That is not what flannel pajamas mean.
You need me to watch the kids?
Wow.
I just assume that's how the film starts. All right, anyway.
Sure.
Next topic. We can put a poll up, but we can either do what it's like to have a second child, hey, like the sequel to So You Want to Have a Baby? You want to have another one? Okay.
Yeah.
We can do that. We have a plethora of topics. I was thinking something that we could do that would be fun. And I know, again, speaking to the addiction, we could talk about fitness myths. Because there's a lot of them.
Yeah. I mean, it changes all the time.
Like your juice cleanse.
Yeah.
Your teas. And your lemons.
Well, we kind of, we probably touched on some of it when we talked about diet culture and MLMs and stuff. Some of the specific products around that.
Or how you can't eat bread. Apparently it'll kill you.
Right. Yeah.
Myths.
There's a lot of that.
That's what I'm saying. We can unpack it. And I'm sure a lot of people have had experiences about.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we'll think of something. I'd like to keep this going. I know summer's hectic with scheduling and stuff.
Life is hectic. I mean, we took how many months to record
I don't even want
2 episodes?
Look,
before the busy season of summer?
Yeah, that's true. Well, this is when we started the podcast 3 years ago, so
yeah,
around this time.
We're going to do our best.
Listen, the Podbean and the .com are renewed, so
we're committed.
Our hand was forced. So, if you have any forms of self-care that you would like to share that we haven't mentioned, feel free to do so. You can hit us up on the Instagram at While She's Napping. We haven't done anything with the Twitter, so
no,
don't even think it exists.
I can barely handle the Instagram.
Yeah.
I can't do more than one thing.
Please feel free to send us an email if you want, whileshe'snapping@gmail.com, and hit us up with your self-care routines. I don't know if you have any closing thoughts that you want to put a bow on this with.
No, I don't think I do. I think we covered everything.
Okay, well, drink your drinks and do your treadmills and your walks, and non-sarcastically.
Are you talking to me or in general?
No, I'm talking to the audience.
I was going to say, when do I ever set foot on a treadmill?
Turn your phones off and check out some birds. That actually sounds lovely.
I'm
not even kidding.
It truly is.
So, anyways, till next time. Take it easy.
Bye.